Hello, everyone, and welcome to Writers Drinking Coffee. This is a podcast where writers sit around drinking tasty beverages to talk about writing, publishing, and the whole creative process. There will be rants and raves and opinions that may not agree but are lovingly delivered. We do not censor ourselves, so consider us PG-13. Your hosts today are Deirdre Schween and me, Jeannie Warner. This is episode 229, interview with Kristie de Garis. Welcome, Kristie.
Hello.
This is exciting, and I wanted to say you sent us, I believe it is your premiere novel.
Yes.
It's called Drystone, A Life Rebuilt, and you really emphasize for me the importance of why we need more memoirs in the world. There are a lot of things going on with the general narrativium of this is how the world works, and this is how all families work, and this is what a nuclear family is and how it works, and everybody is basically neurotypical. And I believe strongly that memoirs show the world much more as it is. So I appreciate you writing it.
I'm so glad.
Absolutely.
Because memoirs generally let you look at things, let any writer say, where did you come from? And the point is that I think every single one of us is a storyteller, and you have a hell of a story to tell.
I'm glad that's how it's come across. And also, I completely agree. I think any person that you sat down with and spent significant time with, you would realize that they have a story just as interesting as mine, if not more.
Well, I don't know, more different.
Yes, different for sure.
There's a lot of focus on making sure that the face you present to strangers is a nice face, a calm face, a good face. And memoirs allow you to see the nitty-gritty that built the person that you are now talking to.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Exactly. And memoirs really tell life as it is. We interviewed a woman who grew up on Lamlash Street in London in the 60s. And the things I noticed were kids sitting around, waiting for their parents to get out of the pub every single day. Much like I want to write one about, with Canadians where they talk about, as we were driving to a wedding once, they were wondering about how many fistfights would break out at the wedding, which was completely alien. And this is like slice of life. People need to know how the world is, how every society is, how people are. And we need to break the narrativium of Hollywood. I'm sorry, but we do.
I completely agree.
And childhood as it is. And your story is about childhood as it is. Children are horrible little monsters, which anybody with a memory of childhood can agree. I have been disturbed to find out how many people don't actually remember their childhood.
I think and I'm a parent now too. So yeah, it's been interesting to be reminded of that through like a slightly different lens as well.
And how old were you when you moved to Scotland?
I was born in Scotland. I was born in Scotland. I was born just outside of Edinburgh. And we lived in the borders of Scotland, which is the most southerly part of Scotland. And then we moved as far as we possibly could go to the most northerly part of Scotland. So from south to north, a big move. And when we did that, I think I was about 8 when we did that.
8 is such an interesting time. 8's in America, it's the middle of elementary school.
Yeah, I think in the Scottish system, I think I was in primary 3, so very early on. Yeah.
And as I also noticed in your book, children are horrific to anything that is not normal. Like I had little kids in my neighborhood running around, are you a girl or a boy? Because I had a Dorothy Hamill haircut, and kids are terrible. I cried. And your kids are terrible.
Children, I suppose they have that, I don't know what the word is, but they're not as reined in by social conventions at that age, right?
We could say unfiltered.
They have no filter. Yes.
Yeah, very unfiltered. And so and also as well, through that, you often see, it's very clear the environments that they're experiencing and the things that they're hearing themselves, because, ultimately, a lot of these concepts are far too difficult for children to understand. So it's a lot of parroting. They're just repeating what they've heard. And that's terrifying when you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
Well, especially when you're talking about kids bullying and, there are adults saying, but they didn't know. And it's like, yeah, you come to a point where if a kid is bullying, it doesn't matter if they don't know. They know they're bullying.
Yeah.
That's the important.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is the bullying of childhood, there seems to be this, again, I like referring to the narrativium of, oh, and the innocence of childhood. And I want to say, were you like an only child alone in fields with no humans anywhere?
Pod person.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think as well, like every single generation has had their thing that has been like very predominant and very difficult, and that has essentially led to like a loss of innocence for that generation. And I think all of us have experienced that in one thing in many things. Yeah, so I don't really think that exists. It should exist, but it doesn't.
And I love that you also bring up another universal truth that I certainly had, Dee maybe not so much, but the idea is that all men will make a great father and all women will make a great mother. And we just have it because we have these wonderful examples from generations before us. And that's not really true either.
I think this has been one of the biggest, not just learning curves, but also like demystifications in my life has been because I had my first daughter when I was very young. I was 21. And I just thought that when you had a child, you would know how to do it, that it would all be innate and you would understand and it would come easily. And then it happened. And I was like, honestly, I was in shock. I was so shocked by how out of my depth and nothing felt innate. Nothing. Breastfeeding didn't feel innate. Relating to my child at points when I was experiencing depression didn't feel innate. It was a shock. And then that led me to understand that learning was going to be a huge part of my life. And then that's the point that I just started learning as much as I could.
Absolutely. And I love that you were, all that theory of it's all going to be innate also doesn't really account for neurodivergence. And the honest truth is that these things can be very genetic. For instance, we got lectured as a future educator years ago in school that, hey, if there's children that lack regulation and lack the ability to do that, their parents probably do also. So how do they give their child structure that they need to succeed when they don't really have it either?
Yeah. I think that, I mean, in my own family, it's how it seems to go as well, is that, I was diagnosed as neurodivergent, and then I realized that my mom was neurodivergent. And then I realized that my dad was probably neurodivergent. And then I looked at my grandparents and I was like, huh. You know, it's been generations in my family of definite neurodivergence, but also all of the struggle that goes along with that.
Absolutely. I mean, in my family, we have ADHD runs through kind of like a family crest. It's somewhere there's something rampant, and rampant, I'm sure, historically just means they had neurodivergence.
Yeah. And as well, it's interesting. Sorry.
No, it's amazing that especially the older generations where there was even stronger a just shut it down, don't show a different face. Having the conversations with, my parents, and it's like, how you do this thing, that is textbook neurodivergence. And they're like, no, it's just how our family is. I'm like, I am aware.
Yeah, it's interesting to have family members, and well, certainly from older generations, say things like, but that's just normal. And of course it is to them. That's been their experience their entire life. And of course it's normal and normalized. But yes, it's still incredibly neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Well, and that each generation has the different coping stories. When I go back to my grandparents' generation, they grew up on farms in a flat state called Nebraska. So it didn't matter if you were neurodivergent because you still got yanked out of bed at 5 a.m. and sent off to do, here's the chore list, you do all the chores. So in a weird sort of way, that kind of imposes schedule. And farm life does have that, you have to do everything at the same time. Or the animals come and say, hey, where are we doing? Come on, we need our stuff here, lady. And that is a coping mechanism. So the minute you leave the farm, what do you do then?
I mean, that's how I felt when I went to university. It felt the world was, I mean, I would use the word expansive, but it was different to that too. It was like overwhelming, all of this possibility, all of this choice. And it went to shit, I won't lie, but it was just too much for my brain with that level of freedom, I suppose, to be able to make choices. Yeah, it totally went to shit.
Well, sometimes the more freedom, the harder choices are, really.
Yeah, very much my experience, yeah.
But I really liked because, when you talked about, and that was where it got really bad with addiction, violence, PTSD. When you started getting your shit together, that is where I really understood the breaking apart descriptions, et cetera, about drywall building, that which you have that ties it all together in your book. Because, okay, there's a lot of some things you can use in your life as is. Hey, this is part of me. Some you have to adjust in shape. Some are just, you got to break it apart and it's still filler. I mean, it's all part of you. It's still part of the wall, right? I loved that imagery that you created and that you, as you described to somebody how to be a drywall builder, drywaller, is that the right word?
Dry stone waller.
Dry stone waller. That really is the perfect analogy of, all right, you start with a bundle of rocks in your life. How do you build something? So was writing your therapy aid? How did you get started?
It was, I think I've heard a lot from people that writing memoir is really cathartic. I mean, right up until the end, right up until the last sort of 3 months, 4 months, I hadn't experienced that catharsis. And that's because truly I had left all of the difficult stuff out. So I had written around it. And when I went back and read the draft, I was like, okay, I see what I've done here. And now I need to go back and actually flesh this out in the ways that I felt able to do, felt comfortable with. And that's when I experienced the catharsis. So I think there was an element of that for me. And also I think there's something extremely powerful about being able to, because I mean, how many people have the time in their life to really look at what they've experienced as a whole, to sit down and write it and think about it and what connects to what and what led to what. And I had the opportunity to do that. And so looking at my life as a whole I learned so much about my life, about myself, about what I wanted, about what I didn't want, simply going through that process of writing a memoir. And in terms of like how I got started, do you mean in writing or do you mean with the book at all?
Well, generally, when I read through your book, and I really liked it, by the way, photography seemed to be your first creative expression. You first started to say that was where you first looked beyond what was in your immediate surroundings, looking to the horizon, and photography gave you that new way of looking at the world, which I was both literal and figurative at the same time. But when you started saying, I'm going to write it, did you write it chronologically, saying this was me as a child, or were there scenes in particular like, wow, this was pivotal for me? So you wrote a scene and then you realized, well, that doesn't make sense unless I write this scene. How did you go about patching that together?
When I first started writing, I've never written a book before. I don't think I understood what was required for memoir. I thought you could just write a chronology. But what I didn't understand, and I only understood this as I began writing, is that you also need narrative. And that is difficult because, all of the things that have happened to you in your life, both good and difficult things, we're attached to them. So I wrote everything out, and then I had to go back and I had to say which events serve the narrative the best. And I think people struggle with this idea of memoir because they want it to be this sort of emotional outpouring, very organic, very natural. And that is the beginning stage, I think, for a lot of people. But you do have to craft narrative because otherwise the book would be all over the place.
So you're saying that you sorted the stone and then you laid the foundation and then you went back and placed the hearting.
No, exactly. And it took many, many, many drafts and lots of cutting. I think I have a folder on my computer. It's called Extra Writing, and I think it has 60,000 words in it. That was cut from the drafts of the book. And I also, for me, I wanted it to be like pace was really important I tried to write a book that I would want to read. And pace is quite important to me. And I thought about that a lot too. So, what's slowing things down here? What do we need here maybe to speed this section up a little bit? So yeah, there was just so much thought that went into every single part of the book. But I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think that and also I think when you're writing like that, when you're thinking about all of these different things, you're dealing with the facts of your life, but maybe you're not dwelling on them a lot. They're again through like a different lens, you're looking at them, like what serves this book and what doesn't.
Well, it's dealing with the emotion of the moment and of the place without being tackled by it, really.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
I was gonna say, you said before we started that you had somebody reached out to you because of your online writing. Was your online writing just, stuff for fun, or was it also autobiographical?
I had started to put some things online about, I'd written a few years earlier, sort of about my experience of growing up mixed race in Scotland and of racism in Scotland. And then I'd sort of let that go. I found that quite difficult. And then I went back to writing once I started Drystone.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about how that felt to work on the land and thinking about my family. And I just written a few short blog posts. But I had also made a deal with myself that I was going to be more brave, I think, and more authentic online. I'd made that deal with myself 2 weeks prior.
Mhm.
And I put out these blog posts, and yeah, I got a Twitter DM from a commissioning editor from one of the biggest publishers in Scotland saying, "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" I assumed it was a scam, that he was going to be like, "If you give me £15,000, I'll you can write a book. I'll help you write a book." But he
Given
was
what's going
real.
on in the internet, that is not an unreasonable
Totally
Yeah, no,
reasonable.
exactly. And so I checked him out, and he was real. And he's Jamie Crawford, and he's a writer himself, and actually an extremely accomplished human being who just it's kind of annoying how accomplished he is, quite frankly. So um, yeah, and then there was like writing a proposal and like a chapter outline and submitting it. One of the hardest things I've ever done. Um, because like deciding the shape of a book before you've written it, that felt, and I think there's a bit of a neurodivergent element to that too, where in my brain, if I had decided how it was, then I wouldn't be able to change it. But that's not the case at all. The publishers just want to know that you've thought about it, basically. You don't have to stick to it rigidly. Well, I certainly didn't stick to it rigidly. Um,
We
and
feel
then yeah, and then getting a book contract and then the shock of signing a book contract and realizing you have to write a book.
I love it that it's so backward for how many of the fiction writers discover the world going of just here, I've written 1,000 stories. Wouldn't somebody please publish one? So
I think something I say to people a lot is, like commissioning editors. I mean, it's still not tons of people who will get, in inverted commas, selected this way. But commissioning editors are online a lot looking for writing. And bear in mind, something that I think is really important. I try to be very lucid about these things. One of the reasons that I was approached is because there was a trend in publishing around traditional crafts. That's
so
one.
the
mm.
That's
Drystone work as a
yeah.
traditional, as one of the original traditional. I mean, I love it. To be coherent, I used it actually in a fiction book I wrote because I was writing about stuff up in the northern part of England.
Yeah, and there's amazing walls there.
Let's talk about walls. Walls are awesome.
I mean, don't get me started, basically.
I want to get you started. Walls are cool.
It's actually been very interesting. I'm reading your book and I'm looking around. I'm in a town in northern Indiana, and I'm like, oh look, there's a dry stone wall, and there's a dry stone wall. That's not a dry stone wall. That one is.
I'm so glad. I think that something that I'm keen to do in my writing, but also in life, is to sort of because dry stone walls are ubiquitous, like especially where we are in Scotland. They're literally everywhere. And so they very much like just become part of you're so used to seeing them, they fade into the background. And I love to
Mhm.
draw people's attention to them because every single stone is placed by hand. That's someone's body, that's someone's time that placed those stones. And I don't know, I think there's something really powerful in that.
The one thing that I was almost wishing you would delve into more that I'm going to ask you about right now. So, can you gush a little bit about how precisely you stoned your first drywall? what, where was it started? How did you get going in that? Because that's so cool.
I, yeah, I mean, so I loved dry stone when I was little. I just loved stone. I've always loved stones. And they feel very, some people have like a real affinity with like trees, forests. I like them too, but for me, I get that feeling from stone. And when I was little, I just really liked them. And then when we moved to Perthshire in Scotland, from Edinburgh, I went to a amazing place called Craig Naver, which is a ruined like settlement village. So there's all these ruined houses and agricultural pens, and it's quite a special place. In Scotland, we have a saying we say the thin places, and it's where like the past hasn't quite settled into the ground.
Mm.
You can really feel the generations when you're there. It's kind of very special. And after that, I just started looking around, and you can take in the UK, you can take dry stone walling courses, and I signed up for one. I didn't do it because I was an alcoholic at the time and I was hungover, so I didn't go. But yeah, I just got stone into our garden, and I just built a part of a wall and took it down, and built a part of a wall and took it down many, many times until I got used to the rules of dry stone. There's some basic rules in dry stone, stone's length in and cross your joins and make sure your hearting is like placed really intentionally, just until all of that felt like muscle memory, I suppose. And then I started going out with my ex-husband, Luke, who was also doing dry stone and doing like small repairs, which was like terrifying to be working on actual walls. But it was, yeah, it was, I
It's,
don't know. I never thought it would lead me here. I don't think.
I don't know. I just think you're going to have to send me links that I can add to the, like, is there online classes one can start by seeing it? So this is fascinating. And if anybody else who loves dry stone, I mean, that's a neat opportunity.
Oh, I highly recommend anyone who's interested. I'm not sure exactly where in the States, but there's quite a big revival happening in the States right now for dry stone. Some incredible dry stone wallers there, and also in Canada. Um, yeah, huge revival, and I think it would be a really, really. I mean, it's an amazing thing to learn for yourself. It feels great. You're outdoors, you're connecting with nature, all of those good things. But also, I don't know, I feel like it's like a really viable career option as well.
I could see that it would be. So thank you for filling in that piece that was missing for me in the book part, mostly because I'm a fanatic about rocks. But going back to, okay, you had it all together. Did you do all of your own editing? Or once you were working with the company, did they do some of it with you? Or you clearly designed what was going to be content, what was important, what was the narrative? Did somebody else go through? Because one of the things I noticed, and this is a congratulations again, you didn't have a lot of typos. You didn't have a lot of the weird. Mm-mm. I mean, I just found one in a fairly established author in a very established series last night. And I'm like, there's a whole sentence missing. You didn't have that. I liked it.
Well, thank you. So something I think that it's important to understand about publishing. I mean, bear in mind, this is my first experience of publishing, but I have a lot of friends who are more experienced in publishing, is that budgets are like very tight in publishing. So your editing budget might not be very big. In my case, the editing budget wasn't very big. My editor was fantastic though. I really, really loved working with her, Alison Ray. Um, but there wasn't a heavy edit to the book to the point where I took the book back and edited it myself and paid a friend who is a talented editor to help me. I was so determined that it was going to be the best possible book that yeah, I took it back from the publishers for 3 months and worked very hard.
I love that. I think I want to say I admire that, especially as a first author, that we've run into a few here or there that's like, oh, I did it and I did all of my own editing and oh, nobody looked at it. And it's like, it's got some flaws. Second pair of eyes, hugely important. Good for you.
Oh, it made the absolute biggest difference. If anyone can afford to hire an editor, even to give it like a cursory glance, even for more like broader themes in the book, I really highly recommend you do it. It's very, very hard to hold a book in your head and then also see it clearly.
I can see that. And did you also, because you talk about photography, your cover design, of course, had the visual element as well. How did you decide what kind of cover you wanted to go with?
That was an incredibly stressful process. I'm a very visual person. I care deeply about how things look. I like them to look nice. I think everyone likes things to look nice. But the publishers had a very different idea to what they wanted the cover to look like. They wanted to go a bit more traditional. But my thinking was, because they wanted to call it dry stone, I thought if we just stick like a photograph of a dry stone wall on the cover, people are going to think it's a dry stone walling manual. And also,
yes.
I just kept thinking, like the people who are going to pick that up in Scotland are like 75-year-old men called Davy, and then they're going to have a heart attack when they read my book. So I've prevented a lot of deaths.
Honestly, I think there's a few more men that could afford to read your book.
You know what's really interesting? I have to say this. The most fascinating thing that has happened, the nicest messages that I have received and the best reviews have all been from older men. And that is shocking to me.
That's fabulous, though.
I did not expect that at all.
I think that's beautiful and kind of important. And maybe they are too tired of the narrativium that assumes that, hey, you're a genetic tissue donor that automatically makes you a great husband or father. And no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's been a really wonderful, I mean, from reading the book, I've had some very negative experiences with men, and it's been a very nice and, maybe partially healing thing to have men engage with my book in such a meaningful and like earnest way, I think.
Yeah, no, it is. And I just want to say out there, if you're listening right now and you've ever thought, well, I don't have anything to talk about. Yeah, you do. I truly believe that everybody's got stories. And this kind of memoir writing is not only a little bit cathartic, a little bit, getting yourself together. I don't know if you have a therapist or not, but your therapist has got to be cheering for you that this is huge. This is great.
Yeah, I think it's been really important for me. People engaging with the book has been, when you share so much of yourself, it's terrifying. But I think I've been very lucky. I've had only positive experiences. I feel incredibly lucky, actually.
Yeah, I hope it stays that way because
Yeah.
reviews in general are plagued with the same thing the internet is. So that's amazing.
There's people that don't seem to understand that even if they just went out there to Amazon and said, 1 star, this is crappy porn, no one should read it. That's actually still helpful. So, bring it.
No, I think I've said that online. Like, if you don't like my book, don't just leave a 1 star review. Say why you didn't like it, because that's also like what you don't like, someone else might love. I just think it's just so important. And I appreciate any review that someone leaves, but like star reviews they don't say a lot, do they?
Sometimes it's like, even if somebody puts in 1 star, crappy book, and in the thing, I hated it because they have to put all that in for Amazon. I am not sure if you are fully aware, but every single starred review matters. And if you get 20 starred reviews, then you go into the algorithm of your book gets recommended by readers of whatever else I was reading. So,
oh, I didn't know that. No, I know very little about Amazon, actually.
Well, it's good for you. And just so you know, if you liked this book, it says to me, if you like Kristie Garis, you're gonna love John Scalzi. Hi, John. Maybe because a couple of us, I don't know how much Dee has, but since I also bought your book through Amazon because I like to support our authors, I just thought it was funny that, okay, I've now thrown you into an algorithm with John Scalzi.
Yeah, it's interesting. Something I got like really, really into promoting my book at first, and then I found it extremely overwhelming. And then I took like a massive step back from it. I haven't really done a lot since I did a massive like pre-order push, and then I took a huge step back from it, and I've just sort of left it. The world of publishing is, as I'm sure like everyone is aware, it's so fickle. It's based on so many different things and luck and timing and this thing and that thing. And I found it exhausting and overwhelming. So I've taken a massive step back from it all.
Well, the nifty thing about yours is honestly where you are. You're in a land where people still have a lot of independent bookstores and still actually buy a lot of books. We've been, I hate Amazon at the same way that I find it useful because almost everybody only gets things through Amazon in terms of books now. I mean, you can buy directly, but I mostly buy books electronically that I can read on my phone. And so it is what it is. It's a necessary evil. And at the same time, you're lucky. I mean, I loved that I lived in Australia for a bit. They all have bookstores everywhere. Canada has bookstores everywhere. From what I've heard, I have a friend who teaches in Edinburgh, bookstores everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it wasn't the same in the US. It's like there really are bookstores everywhere. I mean, less so in rural Scotland, but there's still, you'll have like your local rural bookstore, which it might be like 15 miles away or 20 miles away, but it's still there. And but the cities are like some streets in Edinburgh are mostly bookshops.
Okay, Dee, we're going to go to Edinburgh.
Yeah, and we have entire draws to, there's a privately owned bookshop. Please visit it. Because they are rare and
we have Lee's here in Sunnyvale, and so I'm going to a thing of theirs tonight because, oh my God, local bookstores. So
we have Hyde Books here in Fort Wayne.
No, they're so important to support. And we have do you guys have bookshop.org?
Yes.
Do you guys have that? Yeah, I really like it because it gives like readers the convenience of like online shopping, but then it supports indie bookstores, and I think that's very cool.
That is super cool. What advice would you give to somebody who maybe is like, I don't know, on the fence about how do I get started? Where do I get started? What do I do? What would you say to them?
Oh gosh, I would say everything you write at first, you're going to hate it. You're going to hate it when you're writing it. You're going to hate it when you look back on it. But that is honestly how you get started. I think you have to write all of the crap out of you. That's what I did. I just wrote it all, everything, and so much of it was shit. And for me, I always start there. I've never written something and it's been great first time right. The more I write, the less stressful that initial process is because I get used to it. But I think you just have to accept that it's hard. I'm not a big fan of the idea of, I hear this a lot, if you're in flow state, writing is easy. I have never written anything good and it was easy, ever. It's like, it's truly a slog. And then you go back and you edit it and then it gets better and then you edit it and it gets better. And I just think you have to accept that it's maybe not like the easiest process and it can feel quite shit. So just get started.
But at the same time, I want to shout out something and make an overgeneralization on gender of saying I've run into more guys that aren't comfortable with critiquing, perhaps because they're not really used to being critiqued about their life. Yeah. Whereas, for people that maybe felt like they've been picked at or picked on a lot, editing isn't quite so bad that way.
No, and that's a really interesting observation. And I think actually, like thinking about it for a minute, I would probably agree in my own life and the interactions I've had. I think as well, like I really love being edited by other people. I see it as an incredible opportunity. I mean, if you're just invested in writing the best thing that you can, then other people's feedback is extremely useful. I mean, not too many people. That's another thing I would say. Don't let everyone read your book and tell you what they think.
Because no two people agree.
That's like a recipe for disaster, I think. But I think that having an editor read your work and help you improve it is, I don't know, I really, really enjoy that process.
I think enjoying the process is just as important as anything, because you've said it beautifully. Whether you're building a stone wall or writing a book, life is a process. And are we ever really done? I mean, I'm sure there's one or two things you'd go back, I might change that a little bit, but done is better than perfect, right?
Oh, I mean, I think you just have to, with my book, I just had to have a point where I was like, I'm going to hand it in on this day and I have to do it because I would have edited it forever. I really would have. Like, and even reading it now, I was reading it aloud for something the other day, and reading anything aloud is a way to reveal every single thing you wish you'd done differently. But again, I think it's really important to be, kind to ourselves too. This was my first book. I'm very, very glad that I wrote it. It's changed my life in very important ways, both internally and externally. And you know what? If I write a second book, it will be better. And that's how it should work.
I think you said that wrong. I think you need to say when you write a second book, because Kristie, I'm sorry, I'm going to read that one too.
I think it's important to keep in mind that commercial success is not guaranteed for anyone. So enjoying the process of writing your own book or getting something out of the process of writing your own book is important so that you spend the time doing the thing and making it better. And then if at the end commercial success happens, that is an absolute cherry on top.
I completely agree. And commercial success, especially in like the 2026 publishing landscape, is I mean, so I think my book sold 1,400 copies in about 4 months. And that was when I was doing like a big push. I was working very hard. And that's not many copies if you think about bestsellers, but that's considered very good for a
Hmm.
debut indie book.
I think that's
Um,
fantastic.
Right.
I only had the only reference I ever had was, stickers on bestsellers, 1 million copies,
Mm.
10,000 copies. So sort of being in the reality of it has been, I mean, it's humbling. I won't lie. It's definitely humbling. But then you adjust your reference points, you know?
I just figured that you've had a chance to touch hundreds and hundreds of people in ways that you might not have ordinarily reached. And maybe some of them started looking within themselves and saying, hey, I can relate to that. And isn't that what's important is our fabric and our weave of our society that we all touch one another, all the different strands. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so do I. I feel incredibly lucky. I've had some amazing emails and messages from people. Someone made me a handmade sign from the last line of my book and sent it to me. How incredible is that?
Aw.
Like that's like I still can't believe that happened. That I love handmade things too. And that means that feels surreal. And someone in Germany liked the book so much that they offered anyone in Germany for like, I think it was like 3 or 4 months that they would send them like a copy of the book. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Like, I think anyone who's ever written anything, when you realize that people are engaging with it and that they liked it and it mattered, that's an incredible feeling. I still can't believe that I've written a book that people have read and like.
Well, it fills my heart with joy to know that other people loved it too, because I really did enjoy your book, Kristie.
Thank you.
Well, we will put links to the fascinating things we discussed during this episode on our website, which is www.writersdrinkingcoffee.com. Kristie Garis, thank you so much for coming to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
My delight. You've been listening to Writers Drinking Coffee, a labor of love and enthusiasm put together by the hosts. Our main web magic is cast by Deirdre Schween, and our sound engineer is Ksenia Chernyevskaya. Our intro and exit music is performed by Michael Ingberg, who lives down under and runs Tin Can Music School. Our podcast sponsors are Arm Street in Kharkiv, Arwa Coffee in the Bean Scene in Sunnyvale, and a shout out to wherever you like to take your notebook or laptop and write. And hey, thanks for listening.